He ought to read it. It's right here. I can bring it over if you'd like. Page 1.
Well, Speaker, not only did I read the report, I actually paid some attention when I dressed myself this morning, unlike that scene over there.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, and time is up on the Prime Minister's costly carbon tax. And yesterday, once again, the Parliamentary Budget Officer reaffirmed again that Canadians are out when it comes to the tax. If you add up their two carbon taxes, and of course they tax the tax with GST, it will cost households anywhere between $900 to $2,000 per year. So if the government is so sure of their plan to quadruple the carbon tax, why would they let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was indeed a momentous day for Canada because yesterday the Pharmacare Bill became law in this country. This means hope for 12 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker, for those affected by diabetes, for women struggling with the cost of contraception. Help is now on the way. For the first time ever in Canadian history, the Government of Canada will be helping to bring down the cost of medication, helping Canadians with their affordability. Mr. Speaker, it's a historic day which we should all celebrate in this place.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
What is happening in this country is nothing to celebrate. For the first time in this country, we have 2 million visits to food banks per month. That's 24 million visits, record-shattering in this country. We have thousands of encampments that have popped up in every part of the country. There are children struggling to get meals. 1 in 4 are skipping meals because of the carbon tax and their plan to quadruple it. At the end of the day, this is no coincidence, Mr. Speaker. It's because they keep driving up the carbon tax. When can we just have a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide on the future to axe the tax?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, a few days before Thanksgiving, I think all of us have tremendous compassion for all Canadians who are struggling to make ends meet. But on this side of the House, we know that the best guarantee of a good life for a family is a good job. And that's why we want to celebrate the fact that we learned this morning that in September, Canada added 47,000 new jobs. Unemployment fell. And every single one of those new jobs, Mr. Speaker, was in the private sector.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Well, yesterday's report from Stats Canada was nothing to celebrate. They confirmed that income inequality after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government has never been higher. The gap increased by 50% between the richest and poorest Canadians, the highest it's ever been on record. And after 9 years, when this Prime Minister promised to help the middle class and those working hard to join it, there are now millions of Canadians that will never be able to join the middle class because of their ever-increasing taxes like the carbon tax. Why can't we have a carbon tax election for Canadians to decide if they want to quadruple the carbon tax or axe it entirely?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, the only party in this House that voted against tax fairness has a lot of gall getting up and talking about income inequality. We are the party that fights every single day for the middle class. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to say that part of the jobs news we had today was wages. Wages have now outpaced inflation for 20 months in a row.
Hear, hear.
A good job and a good wage, that is a recipe for middle-class success in Canada.
Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Island and Rideau Lakes.
Parliament's budget watchdog has confirmed yet again that Canadians pay more in carbon tax than they get back in so-called rebates. In Ontario, for example, a family will pay $1,400 more than they get back. But they already knew that because everything costs more after 9 years of these NDP Liberals. Taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up for their economic vandalism that they're perpetrating on Canadians. So why won't this Prime Minister just put Canadians in the place where they need to be with a carbon tax election.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't read the report. It's obvious, because on page 1 of the report, it says right here that Canadians will see a net gain receiving more from the Canada carbon rebate than the total amount they pay in the federal fuel charge. Mr. Speaker, just flip to page 7. It's a bit long. I know the Member of Parliament might have a bit of a difficult time with a document like this, but the meaningless slogans don't matter. What does matter is that, broadly speaking, our updated estimates show larger net gains for average households right across income quintiles in backstop provinces compared to the previous distributional analysis. If he's going to quote the book, Mr. Speaker, he ought to read it. It's right here. I can bring it over if you'd like. Page 1.
Just going to ensure that we, of course, treat all members with the respect and dignity that all members deserve. The Honourable Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, Speaker, not only did I read the report, I actually paid some attention when I dressed myself this morning, unlike that scene over there.
The Honourable Member knows that order. Honourable Member from Milton will take a seat. Colleagues, I've mentioned this before in question period that it's inappropriate to comment on the looks of any member, and so I do point that out. So I'll invite the Honourable Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes to start his question again without the comments which the Speaker has risen to his feet for.
Speaker, not only did I read the report, I was able to make it past the first page, all the way to page 19 of the PBO's report that shows the true cost of the carbon tax for Ontario families, that it's going to be $1,400 more than they're getting back in their phony rebates. And Statistics Canada today revealed the full effect of the economic vandalism. All of these high taxes and economic wealth redistribution were supposed to make Canadians better off, they claimed, but instead we've seen the largest gap between the rich and poor that's ever existed in this country. It's time for a carbon tax election. Why won't they just give us one?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I know that this is Friday, and I know that Conservatives just cannot resist every day seeking to plumb new depths of degraded nursery playground insults. But I have some advice for the member opposite. If he wants to insult a colleague for his appearance, never a good idea, maybe don't pick a gold medal winning Olympic athlete.
South.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years as Liberal NDP government, they are not worth the corporate crime and corruption. TD Bank has been ordered to pay over $3 billion. That's $3 billion by U.S. regulators because they've been found to be in conspiracy to violate the Banker Secrecy Act and commit money laundering for criminals who traffic in drugs that end up on our streets. Mr. Speaker, simple question for the government. When will they take money laundering seriously?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I do want to thank the member opposite for this serious and important question, and I want to wish him and his beautiful family a wonderful Thanksgiving. We do take money laundering very seriously. That is why we've acted to give the Superintendent of Financial Institutions more powers to oversee Canada's financial institutions. And I would urge all members interested in this important issue to look to the statement that he has made on this. We have also been investing in FinTrack and increasing its resources and authorities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is they're not taking it seriously. According to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, he said of TD Bank, by making it its services convenient for criminals, it became one. Why are the Americans having to catch chartered Canadian banks and charging them with money laundering linked to fentanyl, terrorism, and human trafficking? Could the minister stand up and tell us what charges, what sanctions the TD Bank will face in Canada?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it is entirely reasonable for Americans to police activity that happens in America. That's how sovereignty and jurisdiction works. It is also the case that in May, FINTRAC levied a significant penalty against TD for non-compliance with money laundering measures. But I have a question for the member opposite. The Conservatives in this House voted against these measures to protect Canada's financial system.
Why is that?
The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of National Defence and then Minister of Public Safety slow-walked the issuance of a CSIS warrant to investigate a former Ontario Liberal cabinet minister. The minister stalled the issuance of a warrant for 54 days, a warrant that national security officials say should have been issued within 4 to 10 days. So, what is the minister's explanation for this highly suspicious delay?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, for Canadians watching, what I will say to them quite clearly is that we take foreign interference extremely seriously on this side of the House. That is why we have a foreign interference inquiry unfolding before Canadians' eyes as we speak. That is why ministers have been attending and providing answers and clarity for Canadians. We will not take lessons from that side of the House about how to conquer and how to address foreign interference, because this is a priority for our government.
The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, talk about a non-answer from the minister. 54 days of delay to issue a CSIS warrant to investigate a former Ontario Liberal cabinet minister. This at a time when the minister was issuing other warrants within a matter of days. Just a coincidence? Come on. So again, what is the explanation for this highly suspicious delay?
That's right.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, we have the foreign interference inquiry unfolding. It is a commission that we established on this side of the House. We had the minister testify as to this very issue at the foreign interference inquiry commission, and he indicated that when he was presented with the warrant, he addressed it promptly.
NDP Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up. Mr. Speaker, you ruled that the government violated a House order to turn over evidence about the latest $400 million Liberal scandal, effectively obstructing justice. We have heard new excuses for weeks about why your ruling should not be respected. What smoking gun is in those documents that the Liberals don't want Canadians to see? Is it malfeasance, complete incompetence, or obvious corruption?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's really important to recognize literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pages have been provided on this issue. We need to appreciate that we have the RCMP, the Auditor General, we even have a former law clerk, all saying and expressing concerns in regards to this conservative political game where they are handing documents directly from here to the RCMP. I have a choice, or we have a choice. Do we listen to the political games of the Conservatives, or do we listen to the institutions like our RCMP and our Auditor General? I'm picking the RCMP.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, that's a load of stovetop stuffing. This is the latest in a series of scandals involving Liberal insiders riding the gravy train, mashing the truth, stuffing their pockets with taxpayer money, and treating Canadians like turkeys. Parliament has demanded these documents. You, Mr. Speaker, ordered that they be provided. This Liberal government believes that they are above the rules. Canadians are not gobbling up these excuses. When will they turn over the documents and let Parliament get back to work?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you this government does not treat the matter as a joke as the Conservatives continue to play a political game at a great cost. We will continue to be focused on Canadians as they continue to be focused on the Conservatives. Listen to what the RCMP actually have to say, Mr. Speaker, and I quote directly. there is significant risk that the motion could be interpreted as a circumvention of normal investigative processes and I underline the word, charter protections. Why won't the Conservative Party listen to what the RCMP and others are saying?
Je vois un rappel au règlement.
On a point of order, the Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to quickly come back, if you don't mind, to the comments made by the member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands earlier this morning. In Quebec, a report was recently tabled about women's involvement in politics. We already know that there are obstacles to women's participation in politics, but we also know that a lot of women leave politics faster than men. Among the obstacles, there's harassment, threats, risk to security, which is higher for women, but there's also attacks on women's physical appearance and dress. So there appears to be a double standard when it comes to that. And the comments we heard this morning were not directed at a woman, but it might seem harmless as a one-off, and there might be no follow-up, but indirectly, that might make people feel that it's okay to make that kind of comment, and it might discourage people from entering politics, particularly women, from getting involved in politics. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd appreciate that the next time someone makes a crack like that the House should not just be reminded about the importance of using parliamentary language, but also that there should be an apology and a withdrawal of that comment. Such comments.
Order. Order. Yes. Colleagues. I'm going to ask members, please. So, a couple of things. Tout d'abord,
colleagues, first of all, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Saint Jean for raising that point. I think it's very important to remind everyone that the Chair is fully aware of this situation, and that's why I rose to invite the Honourable Member who made the comment to withdraw and start afresh without saying the same thing. But I see that the Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Island wishes to take the floor.
I see the Honourable Member from Milton is rising on his feet on the same point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank my friend and colleague for those comments. They were very well considered and well put. And to be honest, I hadn't really considered the gender implications of the insults from the member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes earlier. However, you know, I'm struck with the reality that when people run out of arguments in this place, they resort to personal attacks. They resort to calling names and using pejoratives and referring to each other's appearances. And that's below the House of Commons. It's actually something that I think a school-aged person would receive detention for or would be called out for as inappropriate behavior. Mr. Speaker, if the member has some sartorial advice for me, that's fine. We can talk about it in the halls. But I don't think we should be resorting to ad hominem attacks. And I would, again, like to thank my friend and colleague for the very well-considered argument. And I'd appreciate an apology because it's childish and beneath this place. Thank you.